I was debating on letting the fallout drop from the Trump presidential win so it can fall like radioactive dust onto newborns, but quite frankly some of his appointments to government are far too funny to pass up. Reading like a list of monsters set to battle the Power Rangers, let's dig into a few. The most recent as of time of writing is RFK Jr. being appointed to the head of the health agency. A known anti-vaxxer, putting him in charge of health is a bit like putting gasoline in charge of a wildfire. My favourite RFK fact that doesn't fill me with as much impending dread is when he suffered from brainworms. I'm not saying that the worms are still in control, but if each household is mandated to maintain lovely nutritious soil with plenty of detritus, then there might be some clues. Speaking of detritus, up next we have Matt Gaetz. He looks like one of those stone men but made out of Botox instead of mineral. I can't decide on what's the biggest crime, alleged sex trafficking of a minor or how he looks. Oh, let's see what he's in charge of. Criminal justice. Yeah, really. The Ethics Committee compiled a report, and Republicans are really trying to hide what's on it. Want my insight? Of course you do, my sweet little angel. Remember when that guy in the wheelchair, Madison Cawthorn, said that he was invited to a bunch of weird orgies by a prominent Republican, and then promptly got blacklisted from the party for mentioning it to the press? I have my suspicions. The new Director of National Intelligence, which I'm fairly sure being a Trump supporter disqualifies you from, is Tulsi Gabbard. Curiously, Gabbard is known to have the odd tendency of supporting Russian-aligned dictators, such as Putin himself and al-Assad, saying that the man who chemically bombed children is not an enemy of the US, as well as supporting Russia's cause to invade Ukraine. The head of the Pentagon is now a former captain in the National Guard and a Fox News host, something, if you're wondering, is not adequate experience to be placed in charge of the most powerful military in the world. By these standards, I've devised a fun little game. Look up a government agency and come up with someone who's, based on what Trump's selected so far, a viable candidate. For the Department of Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, I've gone with the giant ship from Conker's Bad Fur Day. For the Department of Native Americans, I've gone with an even angrier Christopher Columbus. For the Peace Corps, I've gone with Khan the Betrayer. For the Kennedy Center, I've gone with a crooked Carcano rifle left smoking in the Dallas Book Depository window. For the US Mint, a lone Tic Tac. For the Department of Sewers, I've gone with Shredder. For the Office of Civil Rights, I chose the FBI agent who killed Martin Luther King. And lastly, on the Office of Violence Against Women, I've chosen Chris Brown. I was going to have a break from talking about paedophiles, but sadly, much like the past couple thousand years, the priests have once again done it again. I was debating on whether to have a new segment to go along with most pants-shitting moment, called Clergy, You Can't Take 'Em Anywhere. Oh, and if you're wondering, here's this week's most pants-shitting moment.
Ooh, wait, mama.
But I debated on whether that might be just a little bit too offensive, so welcome to Clergy, You Can't Take Them Anywhere. The Archbishop of Canterbury has been forced to step down after one of his mates turned out to be a notorious paedophile. Quickly, the Anglican newsletter made it very clear that only he was going to step down, as if every priest who knew a paedophile had to step down, then there'd be simply no church left. Next up, we have sports. It's a strange thing to have to cover the fucking Paul brothers again, but here we are. Facing off against retired legend Mike Tyson, I'm writing this joke before the fight takes place as proof of my incredible foresight. Anyone who says I simply edited the part out where I was wrong can shut the fuck up and stop telling everyone. Kip Wolf is back from episode 1 for his thoughts on the fight.
I'm of two minds about this contest. On one hand, I get to see an influencer be given brain damage, but on the other hand, Tyson getting into shape gives an unrealistic standard for the rest of us. Woo-wee.
Thanks, Kip.
No worries, boss.
I got round to watching some of the Tyson Paul outtakes, as I began to call them, the comedy of the evening peaking at Tyson's bare ass, as the fight was an embarrassment. Another award-winning joke. Fuck you. Paul won. It doesn't say much. Like watching two cats bop each other on the head and walking triumphantly away with their heads raised. If you watching this believed prior to the fight that it was going to be competitive, then I'm afraid I've got some more bad news for you. Santa Claus isn't real, the Tooth Fairy's your dad, Arsenal will never go undefeated again, and God isn't real. More Trump news, he's pledged to end wokeness in schools, something I can really get behind as I spent most of my time in media class sleeping. Oliver LaRue, the world's tallest teenager, at 7'9" has committed to play for Florida State University, and he's expected to redshirt in his first freshman year. This was a very smart decision, as if he decided to brown shirt, then I'm fairly sure he'd stand out at the nearby Nazi rally. Fuck it, I'm adding a new segment called Best of Luck to Your Champ. Here we celebrate someone's good intentions but know deep down that it's not going to work out. A bit like Make-A-Wish children. Malcolm X's daughters have decided to attempt to sue the CIA, FBI and New York Police Department for $100 million. In Trump's America, best of luck to you, champ. Mia LaRue, le meaning the, and rue meaning fat, but is apparently not called Mia the Fat like a 15th century count, has pulled out of Miss Universe. Something I'd never do. Mia the Fat is the first deaf contestant in the competition, and when asked about what it was like, she said, "What? Apparently the South African selection process saw a participant withdraw over having African heritage. Something incredibly funny." A new Swedish Member of Parliament has required their aides to make sure meeting rooms are clear of bananas after declaring a strong phobia of their look, smell and depiction. This is not so much news as more of a point and laugh at the weirdo. In related news, 40 monkeys have escaped from a facility in South Carolina and locals have been told not to interact with them, not even a wave or having them round for tea. Housed at the Alpha Genesis facility that conducts animal tests for brain research, it couldn't have sounded more like an evil organisation if they tried. I personally would like to get out ahead of the curve and say that I personally welcome our new monkey overlords, that a certain Swedish politician has become incredibly fucking nervous as global banana production is set to explode once the human slave pits are finally finished. Proving once and for all that science has simply gone too far, researchers in Canada have concluded that vampire bats are excellent runners. I personally call bullshit, as they can only do 30 metres in a minute, something that even an old fat wolf can smoke so long as someone is waiting at the finish line with an oxygen mask and an ambulance. P. Diddy is back in the news, for his bail hearing approaches. Arrested for, I believe, every crime ever, Diddy has created the single most unifying moment in world history. Whilst war, poverty, strife are all endured across the planet we call home, regardless of our differences, we can all agree that this motherfucker guilty. He's apparently been trying to have people reach out to witnesses and victims to influence their testimony and create narratives for the upcoming case, something that notoriously innocent people definitely do. Even on a jailhouse phone, coming up with marketing strategies to help out with the case. Personally, I'd like to offer my services to help Mr. Diddy with this campaign. Here's a billboard I whipped up a minute ago. I'm going to do some actual news reporting here, could you believe it? Farmers in the UK have just begun a new strike and protest about paying the same tax as the rest of us. I can't say I'm too knowledgeable about the intricacies of inheritance tax as I'm not filthy rich, but I'll try my best. Normal inheritance tax is 40%. Farmers are now being asked to pay an absolute galling 20% on their estates. The change is expected to affect 35% of farm holdings that are valued over £1 million. 70,000 farms based on DEFRA land worth in terms of hectares is the rough figure. The Treasury believes that only 500 farms will be affected this year. Now, if you consider that properties under £350,000 are not subject to inheritance tax, that would mean that the true valuation of untaxed would be £1,325,000. If they have a partner, then another £1,325,000 can be passed tax-free for a total of £2,650,000. Out of 209,000 farm holdings, only 116 farms are valued above that figure, meaning that only the richest farmers will actually have to pay it, and thus they can suck my massive furry cock.
Oh, Daddy, how will I hunt defenceless animals now, when I'm not attending the most prestigious private schools in the country?
I don't know, son. Guess we're gonna have to pay the illegal farm workers less.
Oh, okay, that's fine. My lifestyle literally doesn't change.
In my continued feud against the nation of South Korea, here's a little gem I uncovered like an old-timey explorer about to steal an indigenous people's sacred relic. K-pop singers are not considered workers. I wouldn't consider them human either, on account of being made up entirely of sugar and corporate exploitation. The controversy stems from claims by a member of New Jeans, seen here with their New Jeans clearly still in the wash. After a workplace harassment suit against their parent company and the biggest music label in Korea was dropped, as the government does not consider celebrities and K-pop singers as workers, but independent contractors in a profit share. This is obviously totally fucking bollocks, and will do nothing but protect sleazy executives and bullies. This has triggered my wolfly pack maternal instincts, and I've decided to adopt New Jeans as my cubs, like a fierce wolf mother. Therefore, I remind the label and the government of South Korea that they can independently contract my foot right up their ass if they mess with my precious girls again. This concludes Wanc News. This has been your host Wolf, and remember, go fuck yourself.